Hey guys, Asmogan here. Most of the artwork you're going to see on display was made by Tabsalad. You can find his work on his Twitter page, linked in the description and in the pinned comment. Also, shout out to the creator of this homebrew highlight, the Tacticus pod, also known as Xerus over on the Discord. Now without further ado, here is the homebrew highlight of the Basilisks. Inquisitor Igiel's log entry, 4th edition. What follows is a detailed account of the Basilisk chapter of Adeptus Astartes. I'll admit I struggled to initially document this chapter, as they were a jarringly different chapter to any I've encountered thus far. So much so, if it had not been for the armor and size, I'd have assumed them a mongrel backwater sect of humans. The chapter was founded during the 21st Founding, also known as the Cursed Founding, and is located on the world of Castofa, a world of oddities beyond just the denizen space marines. In fact, it's no stretch to say the oddities of both are intrinsically linked. Castofa has 3 major environmental biome regions, which take up the entirety of the planet's landmass. A massive continent-sized jungle known as Snake's Tongue, an equally sized desert called Dune's Castle, and Arctic poles entitled Winter's Fang. Due to this extremely unique environment, the chapter has been directly influenced by it, resulting in quite the versatile force amongst these warriors as they consistently traverse and occupy all 3 regions to hunt their prey. Currently, I am stationed at their fortress monastery to write this document. Summarizing what I have learned here over the exhaustive year, I've spent learning all I can of the chapter. Their fortress monastery is apparently only used as a mutual meeting place for the chapter to assemble its forces, for meetings or to assemble for off-world campaigns, though there are supplementary bases in each of the 3 regions for the huntsmen in those areas to live in and collect their kills. An interesting idea, though I would argue that division weakens their collective strength. Though when I suggested this to the chapter's librarian, he insisted that, though they may be divided, it is for the sake of their individual strength. Speaking of the chapter's librarian, as I have done with all the chapters I have documented thus far, I spent a good portion of my time with the librarian, tentatively learning their histories. According to the librarian, the chapter is of an unknown founding. They know not which Primarch fathered them, and in turn, they do not know what other chapters they are successors of. Though the librarian did have his own suspicions when I pressed for his personal perspective. He suspects that they are potentially related to the Black Templars chapter. Though I scoffed at the notion due to just how dissimilar they are, he seemed confident in the relation, stating that indeed at eye level the 2 chapters seemed on entirely different spectrums. It was underneath this outer layer that one could see the similarities. The Black Templars are religious fanatics of the Emperor and masters of the blade. Both aspects the Basilisks reflect massively, and the stubbornness of Dawn could easily be associated with the general attitude of the Basilisks as well. Little bits and pieces here and there seem to fall into place in the librarian's eyes, though I still stand by I don't see the resemblance. The librarian also stated that the Mortifactors and Blood Angels were potential predecessors as well, though he didn't suspect those to be as likely. Shortly after this conversation, I set the librarian upon regaling me with the chapter's history. The Basilisks know not their chapter of origin, however they are well aware of the circumstances in which birthed them. The world of Castofa during the Cursed Founding was under constant siege by a combination of orcs and Dark Eldar, in which scenario I'd take the savage enigma we call greenskins. The planet's value was deemed worthy enough to justify the formulation of Astartes' chapter to occupy it via the unique resources it offered, and cached weapons and armaments the Imperium had stocked there. Therefore, the chapter was formulated and stationed here. Though according to my own records, that is where the story seemingly ends. Whether or not the chapter or the Imperium broke contact is unknown, as all other documents I've uncovered appear to be redacted, I assume making my documentation all the more crucial. The librarian continued, stating that after crushing the Xenos threat, that they began formulating their own chapter's identity and culture, much of which was crucially influenced by the native feral human tribes which occupied the planet as well. The Astartes split up into 3 tribes of sorts, each occupying one of the environmental biomes. The purpose of this was to give the overall chapter versatility and individual strength through the trials and tribulations each environment offered the Astartes.
Ferocious monster-like predators, immensely toxic plants, blazing unbearable heat, shifting sand terrain, plummeting sub-zero temperatures, and much more are all present on Kostofa. Each made their warriors hardened and brutal killers through the hunt, as they call it. I did inquire what exactly they were hunting, but the librarian snapped back at me, saying,
"There is no single prey of which we stalk, no single morsel which would be great enough for the God Emperor. The hunt is eternal, the prey is endless."
A startling but effective response to my question. I noted not to press the issue to satiate my confusion, as my head indeed may be at risk of being removed from my shoulders. The librarian further began to describe and detail the smaller aspects of the chapter. Apparently, though they are in different regions, they do all share a common chapter aesthetic. As they are all still a single chapter of Astartes, they are all basilisks. Though some use camouflage over their armor to assist in the stalking and taking down of their prey, which apparently includes the Xenos enemies of the Imperium. This I discovered on my own when I first arrived on Kostofa, as their fortress monastery's walls are lined with mounted heads of their hunts. Among them includes the heads of orcs and Dark Eldar. The last thing the librarian described to me was what the chapter calls a Great Hunt. Interesting title to be sure, but the reason he explained this to me was because of what had been occurring at that time. Shortly after the smaller details were being established for me, a fairly large influx of the chapter's numbers began to meet at the central fortress monastery. I inquired with the librarian about this, and that was what led to my understanding of the Great Hunt. The Great Hunt is when one of the chapter's huntsmen falls prey to something, whether it be Xeno, demon, human, or jungle monster. The chapter assembles a company of its huntsmen to avenge their fallen brother. The company then surges forth onto the area in which their brother fell and avenge themselves upon the creature which took his life. This explained to me why there was a large number of basilisks gathering. A brother had fallen and his killer would be brought down. Amongst the company, I noted multiple standout details of their armor and unique individuals which seemed to be leading this pride. The Marines formed up suddenly as I and the librarian stood at the back of the hall, and a larger Space Marine stepped up in front of his brothers. That was the Prime Hunter, the chapter's version of a chapter master. His name is Garthul Tazul, and there could be no semblance of doubt that he had earned that title. Tears and punctures dotted his armor, and his face was no cleaner. Gashes and scars took up most of his face. One eye was missing in its socket, replaced with a robotic one, and his left ear was only a hole on the side of his head. Despite these battle scars, one could not help but think that those who had given him those scars looked far worse than he. It goes nearly without saying that the following Great Hunt was a success, and it was an interesting punctuation to my time with the chapter. I will now end this document with the usual logistical details and shall make my way to the next chapter I've been assigned. Chapter name, Basilisks. War cry, for the Emperor we hunt. Founding, 21st Cursed Founding, 991 M36. Primarch, unknown. Successors of, unknown. Number of battle brothers, indeterminate. Around Codex compliance is predicted. Chapter Master, Prime Hunter Garthul Tazul. Homeworld, Kostofa. Fortress Monastery. Huntsman's Throne. Chapter Colors, Bone White, Black and Dark Gray, and Tertiary of Gray. Chapter Badge, Head of a basilisk serpent encircled with a black ring. Allegiance, Loyalist, of course. Codex Compliance, partial. I'm not sure they're fully compliant, especially with the tribal aspects. Preferred tactics, mid-close range combat specializations. However, sharpshooters seem to be a common occurrence within the chapter. Mutations, oversensitive oculobe and Belcher's gland. It is here I officially notarize this document on behalf of the Inquisition and stamp down my Inquisitor Igiel's seal. End of log entry.
Hey guys, it's Asmogan. I hope you guys enjoyed this homebrew highlight. Again, big thanks to Xeris, also known as the Tacticus pod here on YouTube, for this entry. It was a lot of fun to read through all the details, the history, and the imagination was really there, and I really did like the general idea with the chapter with like a huntsman tribal chapter. It's always interesting to see homebrews like that. There's a lot of again, it's very imaginative. It's right up my alley too, because I you know, when I look at series like Star Trek or Star Wars or anything like that, I always find the Mandalorians or the Herosian to be kind of like a very fascinating idea of like a hunter race. And again, that kind of transfers here as well with the Basilisks. Again, a huntsman aesthetic. They're hunters. They bring down their prey. They're mighty warriors, and there's kind of like a moral gray area with how like they operate. Like, that's something I always find fascinating in sci-fi. And we get a little bit of that with mortifactors here in 40k, but something full on like the Basilisks, I don't think has been done off the top of my head. But don't quote me. I don't know every canon chapter, so. You know, don't go at me. But I did like the Basilisks. They were really cool. It was really fun to read. Really interesting to write the script for. And by the way, as you guys know, in this little section here at the end, this is just me giving my raw thoughts. There's no script, no nothing. So if I stutter a lot or if my thoughts aren't complete, I apologize. But it's just me giving my general thoughts of the work, which again I thought was brilliant. It was a lot of fun to write this script. It took a lot longer than I expected because I went through 3 renditions of this script. The first rendition was the one I thought that was done initially. It was done shortly after I got this got the document for this chapter, and I thought it was all set. But then I got a little bit of an update, which didn't add too much, but for some reason it caused me to look back at my first script and go, it's not as good. It left out more details than it should have, so I completely redid that one. And just recently, when I came back to doing YouTube full time, because for the unfortunate circumstance of I had to leave the job I had just taken on recently, so when I just came back to it again, and for the second time, I looked at the script and went, you know what, something isn't, this isn't satisfactory to me. So I had to sit back down, had to rewrite the whole script, and hopefully this rendition proves to be the best one. Hopefully you guys like it the most. And likewise, I hope it does the Basilisk justice. I obviously, like with all the scripts I do for these homebrews, I take a little bit of liberty with certain details. Like I add things, or I just add a little bit of flair that wasn't necessarily in the original document that was provided. I do my best to not change any crucial details or any intrinsic details of the chapter. After all, these are not my homebrews. I'm just basically reporting on them and sharing them, and it's not my place to alter or completely upheave details and aspects of the chapter or add my own flares to things. I just do it in minor ways. In this one, the only one I did that with was the chapter master. I wasn't given any visual description from Xeris on what he was supposed to look like, what kind of attitude, and what kind of guy he was. At least when I read through the document I was given, I didn't really see anything detailed about their chapter master. So I was given the name, of course, and I kind of went a little bit of rogue with it because I thought it'd be more interesting to have the chapter, because I think that's an important character in the chapter, is the face of the chapter, which is the chapter master. He's supposed to represent like the best and worst qualities of his chapter. So I did add a little bit of flair there that wasn't initially written in the document by Xeris. I hope he doesn't mind that. In fact, I hope it only helps him envision more characters he might want for this chapter later on. And again, it was a really cool idea. And by the way, again, the artwork you guys all saw and will see in the background of this video was provided by Tabsalad. He is a personal friend of Xeris, who is the homebrew provider, again, of this chapter, and he provided the art. That's why we don't have the standard like sheet you guys typically see of like the outline of the chapter I typically put together. Well, I usually ask you guys to put together, is what I mean. And I put it in the background, that's how we show off the chapter. But I think artwork like this is probably somewhat cooler or more interesting. So again, check out Tabsalad over on Twitter if you are on Twitter. Unfortunately, I'm not, so I have not been on his page myself. But yeah, go give him a follow, go give him a support, and he's probably a good source for someone to hire to make some art, right? Well, Anyway, thanks so much for watching, guys. I think that's going to end my thoughts, my overall perspective on this. And again, hope I did justice to the chapter. Hope Xerus likes his final product. And hope everybody enjoyed the next homebrew highlight. And by the way, in the description and in the pinned comment, other than just the Tabsalad link, you're also going to see a link to the form, the Google form, if you want to provide your own provide your own chapter in the running for the homebrew highlight. That'll be there. Also, please join the Discord. That's how I get into direct contact with homebrew creators that are on the form. That's how I ask you guys any detailed questions you guys may not have thought of when you're filling out the form. I also allow you guys to fill out your own Google Doc, and I also provide resources over on the Discord for you guys to create your own Google Sheet. Or, sorry, not Google Sheet, but chapter form sheet that I made myself with a Photoshop file. I provide that for you guys, and it allows you guys to make your own like outline if you would like, as opposed to putting it on me to do that. That just so you know, it makes things go smoother, go faster. So that's also there. But other than that stuff, you know, feel free to throw in your homebrew or just comment on this one, and have a good one, guys. Thank you. My name has been Asmogan, and Asmogan, and I'll see you guys next time. Bye bye.